I loved my father deeply, but when he abandoned me for his new family and chose them over me, I decided to erase him from my forever. I'm writing this because I need people to understand what it feels like when hero becomes villain overnight. My dad was everything to me, everything. While other kids complained about their fathers being absent or strict, I bragged about mine. He coached my little league team. He taught me to drive in empty parking lots on Sundays. When I had nightmares, he'd sit on my bed and tell me stories about brave nights until I fell back asleep. Mom died when I was 12, sir. Dad held me while I sobbed at her funeral, whispering we get through it together. It's just a me now, buddy, he said, his own voice cracking. We're a team, and we were. For 6 years we were the perfect team. He never missed a parent-teacher conference, never forgot a birthday. When I made varsity basketball, he was in the front row of every game, cheering louder than all the other parents combined. Kids at school actually envied me. Dad's so cool, they'd say. I mind cared that much. I was proud to be his son. Proud to have his last name. Proud when people said I looked just like him. Senior year I started noticing him texting more, smiling at his phone during dinner. When I asked who he was talking to, he'd just say, work stuff, and change the subject. I didn't think much of it. Dad worked hard. He deserved to be happy. Then she showed at my graduation. Her name was Sandra. She had 2 kids from her previous marriage. Twin boys age 10. Dad introduced her as his friend. But the way she held his arm told a different story. The way he looked at her made my stomach twist with something I couldn't name yet. She seems nice. I lied when he asked what I thought later that night. Good, he said, relief flooding his voice. Because she's important to me. Really important. That summer before college was when everything started changing. Sandra and her boys came over for dinner twice a week. Then it was every other night. Dad would rush home from work to cook for them. Something he'd stopped doing for just me months earlier. The boys were loud. They broke my model airplane that Dad and I had built together when I was 14. When I got upset about it, Dad pulled me aside. Come on, son. It's just a toy. They're kids, them some slack, just a toy. That model had taken us 3 months to finish. We'd worked on it every Sunday after church, Dad patiently showing me how to glue each tiny piece. It wasn't just a toy, it was us. But I them slack. Because I loved my dad, and if these people made him happy, then I'd learn to love them too. College started in August. Dad helped me move into my dorm just like we'd always planned. We grabbed pizza afterward, and for a moment it felt like old times, just us. I'm proud of, he said, gripping my shoulder. Mom would be so proud too. I love Dad. Love too, kiddo. Always will. I believed him. God, I really believed him. The first red flag came in October. I called him on a Tuesday night like I always did, but he seemed distracted. I could hear Sandra's boys yelling in the background. Hey, can we talk later? He asked. The boys have a project due tomorrow and Sandra's working late. Oh, okay, sure, thanks buddy, you're the best, but he never called back. The pattern started then, missed calls, shortened conversations. When I came home for Thanksgiving, Sandra and her boys were already there, settled into our tradition like they'd always belonged. Sandra was cooking in Mom's kitchen, using Mom's recipes. The boys were sprawled across the living room floor, playing video games on the TV where Dad and I used to watch football. Doesn't this feel nice? Dad asked me privately while Sandra was setting the table. Like a real family again, a real family. The words hit me like we were a real family, I said quietly. Emmett, Dad's face softened. Of course we were. It's nice to have more people around, more energy in the house. But I felt it then. The shift. The way his attention was divided now. The way his eyes lit when Sandra's boys showed him their report cards. The same way they used to light for me. Christmas was worse. Dad spent the morning assembling bikes for Sandra's boys while I sat alone in the kitchen, drinking coffee and watching. When they squealed with delight, hugging him and calling him the best, something inside my chest cracked. He bought me a gift card. A gift card. After 18 years of thoughtful, personal presents, he gave me plastic. I wasn't sure what needed for college, he explained when he saw my face. Sandra's boys got brand new mountain bikes and gaming systems. I got $50 to Best Buy. That's when I knew I was being replaced. The final came in February. I called him on the anniversary of Mom's like we did every year. We always spent that day together, visiting her grave and sharing memories. It was our day. Sacred. Oh, he said when I reminded him. I promised I'd take the boys to their baseball tryouts today. Sandra's got that big presentation at work. Dad, it's Mom's day. I know, no, can we do it tomorrow instead? Or next weekend? That's not the same. Come on, don't be like that. Mom would understand. These boys need me right now. These boys need me right now. Not, we need to honor Mom. Not, this is important to us. These boys need me. What about what I need? The words came out sharper than I intended. We're in college now. We're grown. They're still kids. And there it was. The truth he'd been dancing around for months. I was grown, so I didn't matter anymore. I was easy to push aside because I wouldn't throw tantrums or need rides to practice. I hung on him. He didn't call back. When I came home for spring break, there were pictures of Sandra's boys on the refrigerator where my honor roll certificates used to. Their artwork covered the walls of what used to be my dad's home office. Sandra had redecorated the living room completely. Looks different, I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. Sandra has great taste, Dad replied, beaming. Really brightened the place. Mom's picture had been moved from the mantel to a side table. Smaller now, pushed behind a plant. That night I heard them talking in the kitchen after they thought I was asleep. He seems a little distant, Sandra was saying. He's just adjusting, Dad replied. It's hard for him, no. He was used to having me all to himself. Maybe he needs some space to process everything. This is a big change. Or probably right. He'll come around. He just needs time. They were talking about me like I was a problem to be solved. Like my pain was an inconvenience they needed to manage. I wanted to storm down there and scream. I wanted to tell them that I wasn't distant, I was dying. That every day I watched my father slip further away from me was like losing Mom all over again. That I'd never asked him not to find love again, but I'd hoped I wouldn't become disposable in the process. Instead I lay there in my childhood bed staring at the ceiling and planning my exit strategy. If he wanted space, I'd give him space. If he wanted his new family without the complication of his old one, he could have that too. But once I walked away, I was never coming back. I just had no idea how much it would destroy us both. The final straw came 3 weeks later. I should have seen it coming, but love makes even dying love. Dad called me on a Wednesday night, which was unusual. Our calls had dwindled to maybe once every 2 weeks, and they were always awkward, filled with long pauses and forced cheerfulness. "Hey kiddo, got some exciting news," he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. Real excitement, the kind he used to have when telling me about surprise trips to baseball games or new fishing spots we'd discovered. "What's, Sandra and I are getting married." The words hit me like ice water. I knew it was coming. Of course I knew, but hearing it made it real a way that made my chest physically. "Congratulations," I managed. "Thanks, I know this is big news and I wanted to hear it from me first. We're thinking June, small ceremony, just family, just family." The phrase that would haunt me for years. "That sounds great, Dad. And here's the best part, I'm hoping he'll be my best man." For a split second my heart soared. Best man me, his son. Maybe I'd been wrong about everything, maybe I still mattered, really. "Well," he laughed, and I could hear Sandra saying something in the background. "Actually, Sandra thinks it might be better if we're a groomsman instead. No, since Tommy and Jake will feel left out if their mom's new husband's son gets the special job." Tommy and Jake. Sandra's 10-year-old twins. Who would feel left out if I, his actual son, stood beside him on the most important day of his? Oh, but groomsman is still important, will be right there with us. Part of the wedding party. Part of the wedding party. Not his son, not his best friend, just part of the crowd. Who's gonna be best man then? Sandra's brother Mike. Will love him. He's great with kids, and Tommy and Jake already think him as Uncle Mike. Of course they did. Sandra's brother for Sandra's family. Everything made perfect sense. "Dad, can I ask something?" "Sure buddy. Do you remember what told me at Mom's funeral? About us being a team?" Silence. Long uncomfortable silence. "Of course I remember. But that doesn't mean we can't expand the team. Right, more players, more fun." "More fun." My mother's and our sacred bond had been reduced to more fun. "Right," I said. "Well, congratulations again, I should probably get back to studying." "Okay, love. Son, love too." It was the last time I said those words to him. I spent the next 3 days in a haze, skipped classes. Barely ate. My roommate kept asking if I was sick, but how to explain that or watching father disappear in real time. Then the wedding invitation arrived. It was beautiful. Expensive cardstock with elegant script. Sandra Mitchell and Robert Harrison request the pleasure of company. Robert Harrison, my father, but at the bottom in smaller text, following the ceremony, join us for a reception celebrating the joining of our families. Our families, plural, Sandra's family and Dad's new family, which apparently didn't include his old family of one. I stared at that invitation for hours, traced my finger over my father's name, wondered when exactly I'd become a guest at his instead of a participant in it. That's when I made the decision that would destroy everything. I called him back. "Dad, it's me. Hey, did get the invitation?" Sandra picked out the most beautiful. "I'm not coming to wedding." The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. "What do you mean or not coming?" "I mean I won't be there. I'm not gonna stand there and watch pretend this is some beautiful joining of families when I've already made it clear which family matters to die. That's not fair. Matter to me. Always matter to me. 1. The word came out as a shout. When do I matter to? When too busy helping Sandra's kids with homework to return my calls. When moved Mom's picture so Sandra could redecorate. When chose a baseball game over visiting Mom's grave on the anniversary of her. I'm trying to balance. No Dad. Or trying to replace. And know what? Succeeded. Got do-over family. The wife who's alive, the young kids who still need. The fresh start where don't have to carry around the baggage of dead wife and grown son. Stop it. Or being. I'm being what? Honest. Wanna know what I think? I think been waiting for an excuse to push me out since Mom died. I think having a grieving kid around reminded of what lost, and Sandra's boys let pretend never lost anything at all. That is not true. But his voice cracked when he said it, and we both heard it. Isn't it? When's the last time asked about my classes? My friends? When's the last time called me just to talk? Not because needed to tell me something about Sandra. Silence. I can't remember either Dad. Look, maybe I haven't been perfect, but I'm trying to make everyone happy. Everyone except me. Or my son. I love. Nothing will ever change that. Love isn't enough if don't show it. And stopped showing it the day decided Sandra's happiness was more important than mine. I could hear him breathing heavily. In the background, I caught Sandra asking if everything was okay. Fine, he said finally. If that's how feel then don't come to the wedding. But are making a mistake, or letting jealousy what could be a beautiful thing. Jealousy. He thought this was jealousy. It's not jealousy Dad, it's grief. I'm grieving the father I used to have. The one who made me feel like I was enough, the one who chose me first. I never stopped choosing Pi. Yes did. The moment decided that being Sandra's husband was more important than being my dad. I can be both. No, can't, because I've already proven that when forced to choose, pick them. Every single time. That's when I said the words that would haunt me forever. So here's what's going to happen. I'm gonna make this easier for. Want new family without the complication of old one. Got it. Don't call me. Don't write. Don't show as far as I'm concerned. Robert Harrison died the day he decided his son wasn't worth fighting for. Don't mean that. I've never meant anything more in my. Please don't do this. We're all I have left of mother. And there it was. The truth, I wasn't his son anymore. I was a memorial, a living reminder of his dead wife. Find a picture Dad. It'll take less space and new. I hung. He called back 17 times that night. I let every call go to voicemail. By the third day, the calls stopped coming. 2 we changed my phone number. A month after that, I switched schools. Transferred to a college 3 states away where none of his letters could find me. 6 months later I legally changed my last name. I erased Robert Harrison from my so completely that I sometimes forgot he'd ever existed. But here's what nobody tells about erasing people. The space they occupy doesn't disappear. It just becomes a void. And voids have a way of growing until they swallow everything around them. I thought I was punishing, I had no idea I was destroying. 5 years of building a where Robert Harrison never existed. I graduated college with honors, got a good job. Started dating a wonderful woman named Alina who never questioned why I never talked about my family. I crafted a perfect story about being an orphan, tragic but clean. No messy complications. I was proud of how well I'd erased him. How completely I'd moved on. Then my college roommate forwarded me a Facebook message. Dude, isn't this dad? The message was from a woman named Jennifer Morris. The subject line read, looking for David Harrison, urgent family matter. My finger hovered over the delete button for 20 minutes before I opened it. He David, I know this might seem weird, but I got college roommate's contact from the alumni directory. I'm a friend of Father Roberts and I'm trying to reach. Dad's been in the hospital for 3 weeks. He had a massive heart. He's not doing well. He keeps asking for his son David. I know two haven't spoken, no. He's at Mercy General room 314. Please consider visiting. Time might be running out. Jennifer Morris. I read it 7 times before it sank in. My father was dying. My father was dying and asking for me. My first instinct wasn't to rush to the hospital. It was to delete the message and pretend I'd never seen it. That's how completely I'd trained to him out. Even facing my automatic response was erasure. But something in those words, he keeps asking for his son David, cracked through 5 years of carefully constructed walls. I booked a flight that night. The hospital smelled like disinfectant and despair. I stood outside room 314 for 45 minutes, listening to the steady beep of machines through the door. Nurses walked by giving me concerned looks, probably wondering why I was just standing there. When I finally worked the courage to push open the door, nothing could have prepared me for what I saw. He looked so small. My father, who had seemed invincible when I was growing, was now this fragile thing connected to tubes and wires. His hair had gone completely gray, his face was gone. He looked like he'd aged 20 years and 5. But when he saw me, his eyes lit with such pure joy that I had to grip the doorframe to keep from falling. David, his voice was barely a whisper. Came, I wanted to run. I wanted to turn around and walk out and pretend this moment never happened. Instead, I took 3 steps into the room and stood at the foot of his bed like a visitor, not a son. Jennifer said, we're sick. I am. He tried to smile. But I'm better now. Now they're here. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. 5 years of silence, heavy and, look good, he said finally. Older, like a man now. Like a man now. I've been for a while. He flinched at the coldness in my voice and I hated for it. But I couldn't seem to access any other tone. The defense mechanisms I'd built were too strong. I tried to find, he said quietly. After changed schools, changed number. I hired a private investigator. This stopped me cold. What? Cost me $12,000. Took him 8 months to track down. But by the time he found, he changed name too. His laugh was bitter. David Mitchell. Took mother's maiden name. I had taken mom's maiden name. It felt like claiming her while rejecting him. I wrote letters, he continued. 53 letters over 4 years. Sent them to schoolwork, even had the investigator find apartment. Did get them. My throat went dry. No. Probably got thrown away. Wrong name on the mailbox. He closed his eyes. I kept writing anyway. Kept hoping one would reach Pine. What did they say? The words came out smaller than I intended. That I was sorry. That I'd made mistakes. That I missed every single day. That I never stopped being father. Even when I felt something cracking inside my chest. But I couldn't let it break. Not yet. How's Sandra? I asked, aiming for casual and landing somewhere around cruel. His face crumpled. We divorced 3 years ago. What? Turns out we're right about a lot of things. She never wanted me to have a relationship with. Said it was confusing for the boys to have me split my attention. Every time I tried to reach out to, she'd create some crisis that needed my immediate attention. The room spun around me. Divorced her. Finally realized I was letting someone else dictate my relationship with my son. By then it was too late. We're gone. Really gone. The boys moved back to California with their mother. Haven't heard from them since the divorce was finalized. Turns out we're not useful anymore. People irony hit me like a physical. He'd lost his stepchildren the same way he'd lost me. By choosing someone else's happiness over the relationship that mattered most. I'm sorry, I said and meant it. Don't be sorry for me. Be sorry for us. For all the time we lost. He reached toward me with a shaking hand. I was so focused on building this perfect blended family that I forgot the family I already had was perfect. Just in me. It was enough. It was more than enough. I didn't take his hand. I couldn't. 5 years of training not to need him was too strong to overcome in one conversation. Why didn't harder? The question came out like an accusation. When I said those things on the phone. When I told to leave me alone. Why didn't? Because we're right. His voice broke. About all of it. I had stopped choosing. I had gotten so caught in playing perfect husband to Sandra and perfect stepdad to her boys that I forgot to be father. And when called me out on it, I was so ashamed that fighting felt like admitting how badly I'd ball. So just let me go. I thought he'd come back. I thought cool off and realized that family doesn't just disappear because people make mistakes. I kept waiting for to call. Kept my phone on loud every night just in case. I changed my number. I know, but I kept hoping anyway. The machines beeped steadily in the silence that followed. I watched his chest rise and fall and wondered how many breaths he had left. Wondered if I'd too many of them already. The wedding, I said suddenly. Did go through with it. He nodded. Sandra was beautiful. The boys looked handsome in their little suits. Everything was perfect. But when the minister asked if anyone objected, I spent 30 seconds staring at the empty space where should have been standing. 30 seconds where I almost called the whole thing off. Why didn't? Because I'd already lost. Losing Sandra too felt like admitting I was completely as a husband and a father. Wasn't I? My wife died. My son erased me from his. My second wife left me when I was no longer useful. Her kids forgot I existed the moment I couldn't give them anything. At what point do you start wondering if the common denominator is, I wanted to comfort him, wanted to tell him that wasn't true. But some wounds are too deep for easy words. I saw the obituary, he said suddenly. What obituary? Grandmother's. Mom's mother. 2 years ago, his eyes filled with tears. I wanted to be there for. Wanted to sit beside at the funeral and hold hand like held mine when we buried mother. But I didn't know if I was welcome. Grandma Rose. I'd grieved her alone, surrounded by distant relatives who barely knew me. The whole time, I'd wished for someone who understood what she meant to our family. Someone who remembered her stories and her laugh. Someone like my dad. Should have come, I whispered. Should I? After what said? After told me to stay out of. I was 21. I was an angry and right. We're right about everything. I chose them over. I did put Sandra's happiness before yours. I did treat like we're disposable. But I was cruel. The things I said were things I needed to hear. Even if they destroyed us both. A nurse came in to check his vitals, and I stepped back, suddenly aware that I'd been leaning closer to his bed without realizing it. When she left, the distance between us felt enormous again. There's something else, he said quietly, something I need to tell before. Before what? Before it's too late. The machine seemed to beat faster, or maybe that was just my heart. I'm not getting better, David. The damage to my heart was too extensive. The doctors are giving me days, maybe a week. The room tilted. What? That's why Jennifer tracked down. Because I made her promise that if something happened to me she'd find. I couldn't knowing thought I'd forgotten about. Dad. I know we can't fix 5 years in 5 days. I know I don't deserve forgiveness for choosing other people over my own son. But I need to know that losing was the biggest mistake of mine. Not just because of what I did, but because I let walk away instead of fighting to keep. Tears I'd been holding back for 5 years started falling, and I couldn't stop them. I choked out. Every day, every single day. Then why didn't come back? Because I was too proud, too stubborn, too afraid that if I came back and rejected me again it would me. So instead we both died a little bit every day for 5 years. I finally took his hand. It was so thin, so fragile. Nothing like the strong hands that had taught me to tie my shoes and throw a baseball. I'm sorry, I said. I'm so sorry all this time. I'm sorry I gave reasons to leave. We sat there for an hour, holding hands and crying and trying to fit 5 years of conversations into whatever time we had left. But here's the thing about time: when have most of it, what's left never feels like enough. He died 3 days later. I was holding his hand when his heart finally gave out, just like he'd held mine when Mom died. At the funeral I sat in the front row alone. Sandra didn't come. Her boys didn't come. The few people who showed were neighbors and coworkers who barely knew him. The man who had once coached Little League and volunteered at school fundraisers and made everyone laugh at barbecues died with an almost empty church. Because he'd pushed away the people who really loved him for people who only loved what he could give them. And because I'd been too proud and to come home until it was too late. I gave the eulogy. Talked about what a good father he'd been before everything went wrong. Talked about the lessons he'd taught me and the love he'd shown me. But I couldn't talk about the 5 years we'd lost. Couldn't explain to strangers how we destroy each other through a combination of neglect and pride. And the terrible belief that love should be easy. That it should never require forgiveness or second chances. After the service, Jennifer approached me. He talked about all the time, she said, especially after the regretted everything. How to know him? We worked together, but we became friends after Sandra left. He was so lonely, and he felt so guilty about losing. He used to say he'd trade everything he had for one more conversation with his son. She handed me a box. He made me promise to give this if anything happened. Inside were 53 letters. All addressed to David Mitchell at various addresses I'd lived over the years. All returned to sender. I read them all that night sitting on my hotel room floor, sobbing like the 21-year-old boy who'd made the worst decision of his. They started angry, defensive, justifying his choices and blaming me for being unreasonable. But by letter 10, the tone changed. He started admitting his mistakes. Started acknowledging that I'd been right about Sandra, about his priorities, about everything. By letter 30 he was begging, please write, please give me another chance. The last letter, dated just 6 months ago, was only 2 sentences long. I love San. I'll keep loving until the day I whether come back or not. I'd won. I'd proven my point. I'd shown him what it felt like to be abandoned. But winning had cost me everything that mattered. The worst part wasn't that he died. The worst part was realizing that for 3 of those 5 years, he'd been trying to rebuild what we'd lost, and I'd been too committed to punishing him to notice. I'd erased him so completely that I'd erased in the process. Now I'm 31. I have a good, a loving wife, a career I'm proud of. But I'll never have a father again, and every time someone mentions their dad, every Father's Day, every birthday, every moment when I accomplish something and instinctively reach for my phone to call him, I remember when erase someone loved to prove a point. The only thing really prove is that pride is a that kills everything it touches.